to me that there are busts and there are hits all over in here. I mean, you've got a couple of Hall of Famers in there with Randall McDaniel, Ron Yeri, Carl Eller. So, they've had their share of hits in the first round, but, Christian Ponder isn't on this list because he wasn't selected before Culpepper as 11th, but clearly bust. Troy Williamson, clearly bust. I think Tommy Mason, their first pick, okay, but certainly not, in today's NFL, I think, taking a running back first overall would really raise eyebrows. But, it's a difference in philosophy now, I guess is the way to put it. The running backs just aren't even close to valued nearly as highly as they were back in the 60s and 70s.
And you also have done some research on the last 3 first-rounders at positions of need. Offensive line was Matt Khalil, Bryant McKinnie, and Corey Stringer. Corey Stringer was actually a good pick who met with a tragic end. Bryant McKinnie was, he didn't play as well or as long as they would have liked, but he did play well for a while. And Matt Khalil had a great rookie year and fell off the table. Defensive line, Sharif Floyd, Erasmus James, and Kenichi Udeze. Boy, that's scary. Defensive back, Mike Hughes, Trey Waynes, and Xavier Rhodes, who they've gotten value out of.
Yep. And I look at the offensive lineman, and Stringer was a wonderful right tackle. McKinney and Khalil, both of those guys, I still really don't have a problem with the Vikings drafting them because I think their talent was warranted for where they were picked. Khalil had a great rookie season, and he still, has the athleticism to be a very good left tackle. But injuries, and I'm not sure he's all that dedicated or passionate about the game. I think that has factored in. And McKinney, I would say the same thing, where, such a mountain of a man and great athleticism for how big he was. But I just don't think he had that fire for the game. And so that's why a lot of these combine interviews and pre-draft visits make a big difference for the team. And you have to be able to figure out how, not necessarily, I don't even really want to, I guess dedicated is an okay way to put it. But that doesn't mean you can't have off the field interests. So you just need to have, the inner work ethic, the desire to become better and work at what you're doing and not just rely strictly on athleticism. Defensive line, Udeza obviously had the health problems, so you wonder what he might have been if that didn't come along. James was just a complete bust who I don't think had really a football toughness to him and really wanted to get to be the player he could have been. And Floyd, obviously, I think he was a good pick at that spot, but then the injury comes up and his career is over. So that's why the draft is so difficult, because even if you get good players who, seem to have the work ethic to want to get better, you just never know if they're going to be injured or in Kenichi's case, just a kind of a devastating health diagnosis that derailed his career. You can't really know for sure. And that's why I think there is still a lot of intrigue around the draft.
Somebody once told me about an epic locker room fight between Chester Taylor and Erasmus James, and Chester Taylor was just kind of sick of Erasmus just not really being into it. I wanted to just take him apart. But I can't remember who told me. Just popped in my head. All right, let's wrap up the show.
There was also a story about Erasmus James where the middle of the winter, some of his teammates took a pair of his jeans hanging in his locker and soaked them and hung them outside and froze them.
Yep.
And he was just devastated by that. Like, he felt he was being picked on, whereas, there is a lot of just back and forth practical jokester pranks going on in locker rooms. And, if you can't put up with that, or, enjoy it and become involved with it and have a good time with it, it's going to be a tough environment for a player to get along.
That is true. I think that the pranksterism in sports should probably go away. It probably doesn't do you much good these days, but if you can't handle it, it might say something about your ability to play a game like football. Let's wrap up the show. Last 5 drafts, players selected with the picks the Vikings will be selecting at on Thursday and on Friday. Thanks again to Twill and the Edina Galleria, Fixologyrepair.com, Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent who works out of Champlin but can help you wherever you are. Thanks to our producer, Brandon Morton. So the 18th pick, the last 5 18th picks in the draft. Cornerback Jair Alexander, cornerback Adoree Jackson, center Ryan Kelly, cornerback Marcus Peters, and safety Calvin Pryor.
Doesn't give me a lot of hope that the Vikings are going to, find a multiple-time Pro Bowler when you look at those guys. I mean, some of them, okay, quality starters. Marcus Peters, I thought, was great in his first year or two. And then I think you see some of the attitude issues that have come up in the last couple of years. And, he's a bit of a gambler as well. And so I think that inflates some of his interception numbers and the perception of fans among him. You look at those 5 guys, though, and I go, well, okay, maybe expectations are a little too high for mid-round, first-round picks.
With the 50th pick in the last 5 drafts, 5-0, guard Connor Williams, safety Justin Evans, guard Nick Martin, defensive back Ronald Darby, and linebacker Jeremiah Atowacha. I'm not pronouncing his name right, which might tell you something about his career.
Exactly. And, I think a couple of really good offensive linemen there with Nick Martin and Connor Williams. So that, I think, backs up the theory, or, my feeling anyway, that if there is a really good tight end or defensive tackle in the first round, you can still find a quality, perhaps Pro Bowl, multiple Pro Bowl type guy like Nick Martin is, with the 50th pick in the draft. So I'm not going to get all bent out of shape if it's not an offensive lineman in the first round, as long as it's an offensive lineman in the second round or third round.
And with the 82nd pick in the last 5 drafts, safety Tracy Walker, wide receiver Carlos Henderson, tackle LaRaven Clark, linebacker Lorenzo Malden, and defensive tackle Will Sutton.
Yeah, kind of a crapshoot to me.
Yeah.
None of those.
I don't even want to cover the draft anymore after reading all these names.
I know. It shows you that there's never any certainty. And while, there are always these mid and late round draft picks or undrafted guys that, like an Adam Thielen, that comes up and makes something great out of their career, there still is a line of demarcation, I guess, or a dissension in how, first rounders, while they are still kind of hit and miss, you get more Pro Bowlers out of the first round, and it's slowly this descending order of Pro Bowl picks the further you go down the draft order, which is the way you would expect it to be. But I think a lot of times, you hear about a Tom Brady or a John Randall or a Adam Thielen that all of a sudden has, become very, very good, perhaps Hall of Fame, even when they weren't drafted in the top 4 or 5 rounds. And so those are the anomalies. The first through third round is where you really want to expect to get, at least 2, maybe 3 starters long term, and you hope you have a Pro Bowl or 2 mixed among those.
Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to our listeners. This is TalkNorth.com. We'll be back soon to tell you what the Vikings actually did in the draft.